and welcome to this session on harnessing the power of tech to reimagine learning experiences and revolutionize education here at the ET Future of Education Mini Virtual Summit. I'm Miloni Bhatt, and my guest today is Nidhi Bhasin. She's the CEO of NASCOM Foundation. Nidhi, welcome to Economic Times.
Hi, Miloni. I'm such a pleasure to be here.
Wonderful to have you here with us, Nidhi. Tell us a little bit about NASCOM Foundation and the core philosophy of tech for good and the key areas of intervention, which is digital literacy, skilling, employability, and women entrepreneurship. Especially now that we have this new education policy coming, and it'll impact all of these things. So, how do you see them actually impacting the larger ecosystem and your role evolving?
Sure, Miloni. We are NASCOM Foundation is a part of NASCOM ecosystem. So we were established, we just celebrated our 20 years, and we have done some impactful work across the country. But our core agenda goal is tech for good, any technology which has social impact. Because especially in today's time, we all understand that the role of technology into maybe speeding up the overall social impact narrative. So that's where we completely believe that it is technology which will have really which will help the country also to achieve the SDGs. And with that as a focus and understanding the need both of the community and since we represent NASCOM of the tech industry. Where is the alignment? And within the tech for good, while we work on social innovation, our focus is a lot on digital literacy, especially at the last mile, because we feel that yes, there with technology, the urban rural gap is also increasing, and we need to ensure that no one is left behind. The development of the country has to be very inclusive. So for that reason, the people at the last mile have to be digitally literate. So we're running a lot of programs, especially also with a lot of focus on aspirational districts. Secondly, the other key vertical that we have, or the goal that we have, is around skilling and employability. We have the largest youth population in the world and also the largest unskilled, unemployed youth population. So there is how do we bridge this gap? How do we ensure that the youth is upskilled and also employed? So with that, we run a lot of programs across the country um, on skilling programs which gives you jobs in IT enabled skills. So which could be in the tech industry or any other industry. And we do run programs from traditional technology to Java, C++ to emerging technology like cybersecurity, AI. So it's and our whole segment is our approach is to reach the marginalized youth. And the third key area is, see, women is a major part of this inclusion for all. So we do run a lot of programs around digital upskilling of women entrepreneurs. So this is across board, especially we work with hundreds of colleges and universities in our skilling programs, in our digital literacy programs across 24 states across the country. And of course, you mentioned the national education policy. Now, that is the key. One of the key focuses out there is to make ensure that we are talking about that more and more people at the senior level, at the higher education level, are a part of the education system. But we also understand that there's a huge gap out there. So right, while the gross enrollment rate at if I was going through a study is almost 100% at the primary level. But as we go towards the secondary levels and the higher education, it's dropping majorly. So to bridge that gap, again, what we have seen is how technology has plays a role, and we saw that during the pandemic. So a combination of what the government wants to do, aligned with what technology can really help, and of course, along with all the infrastructure. So there is definitely a scope to really align these two things, and a whole initiative of Tech for Good is focused on ensuring that we bridge these gaps.
So, Nidhi, how do you see your role, when you have the new education policy, when you have the NDU, how do you see the scope of that enlarge or change?
One I would say is, see, any kind of change starts with at least the intention, right? So what I feel that by having both the national education policy and ND, the intention is there. Now we need to come together to capitalize on that and ensure the
Mm.
right kind of resources are available for that. So, as NASCOM Foundation and Agenda of Tech for Good, we work with some of the major tech industry companies. We are trying to see that how through the CSR part of it, how these companies are looking into investing into CSR, whether you see it from a tech for good point of view, or social innovation point of view, or education point of view. We're trying to see that how we can bring these resources together to actually ensure that we are able to align ourselves with the NEP and make sure that there's more access to education. And of course, a gap is also about the accessibility in terms of either the infrastructure or digital accessibility. So
Mm.
that is one way, that having more resources to support this whole agenda. And ND, definitely, I think again what I said earlier, last 3 years showed us that if you have online learning system, we can reach the last mile. Of course, pandemic did show us that a lot of people at the last mile were also left behind because of the accessibility issue. But along with that, if we acknowledge it and we start addressing it and we start supporting it, we are able to, one, reach out to a lot of rural youth. We are able to reach out to a lot of the educators in the rural areas, and we're also able to give them a lot of courses which is more of interest to them, right?
Mm.
And we would be able to align a lot of courses which are more in terms of which will make them employable at the rural area itself, right? Because a lot of in our education system, a lot of curriculum may not be giving make scaling them from a employability point of view, right? They may be educating them but may not be making them employable. The courses available, I'm hoping the courses available at ND will actually help them to uh, make them more employable, whether it is about after class 12 or it is at the stage of graduation. But at all levels, it will make them more employable. They'll give them more skills, more options. And also, it is also within the marginalized, there is also a section which is in terms of children with learning disabilities, right?
Right.
So even ND would be able to help you to cater to some of those segments, because it probably, because it will have a lot of options out there, it will cater to the people with learning disability, at least in terms of people can learn at their own pace, because in a classroom setting everybody may not be able to learn at the pace that the teacher sets, right, or the school sets. Here there could be a lot of learning. People who have attention issues
Mm.
can learn probably in short breaks. Similarly, people who do not have an interest in a certain subject can actually drop and say that I want to do a certain kind of a curriculum or a course. So put together, I think these two, provided there is enough infrastructure, provided there are enough resources, provided the accessibility issue, which is a huge issue, is
Mm.
bridged. Without this, they will all fail. Addressing these three issues, and of course, having the right kind of awareness in the areas to say that how this will help. I think a combination of all of this will really help to, um, if not completely reach the goal that we have set ourselves to achieve as a country, but at least we'll be close to it.
Right. You know, how do you see teachers, especially, and their role in all of it? Right now, one of the big problems that we have with our system is the quality of teachers and training. And in the NEP, of course, there is a very focused way in which, we want to up the quality of teachers. What are some of the challenges that you see in us through even through the NEP or even with the NEP in being able to bridge that gap and make quality teachers available to others?
So, we saw the gap when the gap was not only for students, but also for majorly for teachers. It was much bigger for teachers when the pandemic set and everybody had to go into the online virtual learning system. And I think I've seen a lot of government resources, or let's say NCRT or CBSE right now, putting a lot of concentration on teacher skilling, right? Because while we do talk about right kind of education for children, it will not come unless the teachers are skilled. So one, there is of course a number gap out there. If I'm not mistaken, we have I think we need to right now double the number of teachers if we want to reach the ratio of 1:15 that the government is talking about. So one, in terms of having more teachers available to teach, right? Second is skilling them and upskilling them. Um, Also have more incentives, better pay scales, because one of the reasons that you don't get the right kind of teachers is also because while it is a very honorable profession, right, but it's not really paid as per what the market scenario right now is. Only very few private schools pay you well, right? And so one is from actually acknowledging that if this is actually the segment who's going to train the future of the country, right? Then how can we say that they have to be below average resources? Then they have to be the best resources. So one, I think a little bit more concentration on better quality by giving them more facilities, incentives, salaries. Secondly, also in terms of skilling and upskilling, even in the corporate life, we say that it is important to upskill every resource, right? So skilling for teachers again become extremely important. And I would say that while the government is talking about under CBSE, NCRT, all the other curriculums, it is also important that we also, as a non-profit sector, I would talk about the whole of it, concentrate on it. While a lot of CSR spend is happening on upskilling or skilling the students, what about spending a little bit more money on skilling the teachers? So that definitely, I think I would say that to ensure that the future is absolutely as per what we want them to be in terms of their strengths, in terms of their capacity. It has to, right now, this is the time to concentrate on teacher skilling and upskilling, and I think better incentives and resources for them.
All right. Nidhi, now this is my final question to you. You worked in the social sector, you're also CEO NASCOM Foundation, and you all build linkages. So from your vantage, what is the type of cooperation, partnerships, and what is the tech layer that you think will be needed between those in the education sector, employers, the larger community, just so we ensure inclusive, sustainable societies where there is some sort of economic and social equity?
I think everybody right now is talking about collaboration, right? I think wherever I go, we hear the word collaboration, right? But collaboration also comes with a lot of personal responsibility. And so whether it's a government, it's a non-profit sector, the civil society, or the private sector, edtech companies, corporate CSR, whatever it is, it's very important for all of us to actually have a set goal together. So there is a goal, but how are all of us committing to that goal? How are we, like at NASCOM Foundation, I'll tell you, we've taken a goal of saying by 2025, we would have impacted 100 million lives. Out of these 100 million lives, we are talking about at least 25% to 30% being the youth, in terms of skilling, upskilling, making them employable. So that is the kind of commitment we are making. Can we do it ourselves? No, we can't do it ourselves, right? So we are trying to work along with the government to understand how we can partner with them. We're probably having conversations, let's say, with CBSE and NCRT to see that, okay, what is it that we can do in terms of skilling, upskilling the teachers? Similarly, we're speaking to the private sector to figure out in terms of, okay, is there any kind of a CSR spend or any other spend that they're ready to do on, and what is it that we can work on together? What is the also in terms of, if we talk about innovation, we are also encouraging at the college and university level more and more students to come up with innovative ideas about whether it is like setting up a pre-startup or any ideas which will help you in terms of better reach, more efficient, educational systems. And third is that I think ed tech companies came up suddenly overnight, hundreds and millions of them. I think it's time for us to also say how they are being responsible for it, right? What is it? And also, somewhere there's a lot of content available. There's a lot of syllabus content, all of that available. How can we put it all together to ensure that it reaches where it's supposed to reach? And I think one bigger thing is that when we are developing this content, while whoever is doing it from a profit point of view, fine, they're doing it for a certain segment. But if we really, where our largest population is in the rural areas or the last mile, Are we trying to even understand what is the need out here? What kind of a content do they need, right? And are we making this content adaptable to those needs? Because
Mm,
if the content that my child will use in the school, if I take it to a rural area, it's not the right kind of content. So the whole advantage of this virtual learning, hybrid learning, online learning, edtech is that you can tailor make content to suit the need of a community, right? And there needs to be a little bit more concentration. We have some great solutions happening right now. In fact, we do these Tech for Good awards, and we had an organization like Pratham who has a great solution, and they were one of the winners out here. So there are some great solutions. It's just that the scale of the country is such that we
mm,
need to have more solutions. And in terms of technology, right now can be the biggest enabler. But my underlying thing again and again is that do we have enough access to it? When I say we, I mean people at the last mile. I'm not talking about a typical urban population. I'm not even talking about the population which would have at least one phone in the house. I'm talking about a community which doesn't know what a smartphone is. I'm talking about a community where probably 8 or 9 people will be using one particular instrument. So if we are talking about online, if you're talking about technology, then it has to come first with the right infrastructure. It needs to come with the right kind of accessibility.
right. Nidhi, very good points. And, I want to ask one more question,
Yeah.
and that is, you know, uh, you sit as the CEO of NASCOM Foundation, and obviously you see tech in play, right? And how that tech is transforming lives and all of that. And you pointed out that there is a deep tech divide, especially with a stratified society such as ours. And tech at the last mile, what's the accessibility? You raised the question. How confident are you that, or from your vantage, how much time do you see us in getting that tech to that last mile? What are the big challenges for us, and what's the roadmap that if you could share?
Had if we had the right resources, we would be actually achieving our SDGs by 2030, and one of them is education, of course, right? But right now, there's a huge gap between the resources that we need and what are being we what is available right now. So I feel, ideally, I would say yes, 2030, but it is all subject to the resources. As an organization, that's why I said we took a goal of 100 million lives, impacting 100 million lives. But um, it's got a ripple effect. So if you don't achieve it by 2030, we are going that much behind what we really need to do. So I would just say that at this point of time, we are in 2023, we have 7 years to go with a huge gap. Uh, Provided if we are able to put more resources to it, it's all about resources. If you're able to put more resources to it, whichever sector it is from, whether it's from government, it's from private, it's from civil society, if you're able to put more resources to it, yes, we can achieve it by 2030. Otherwise, the gap will continue at the rate that the population is growing. Yes.
Right. These are sober words, Nidhi, to end on, and really, for everyone to ponder. And as you said, everyone needs to come together. So be it civil society, be it corporates, be it government, be it organizations, all come together, do their bit, and help others in doing their bit as well. But Nidhi, thank you so very much for speaking with us today and sharing your thoughts.
Thank you, Melanie. It was lovely. Thank you so much.